Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, the Value Creation Playbook. Now, last month I was in a strategy session. The CTO had prepared a detailed presentation, three AI work streams, solid thinking, real investment behind it. About 15 minutes in, the COO, who I would work with for 2 years, sharp, experienced gentleman, leaned over and said quietly, Raja, should I be worried about my team? Not about the technology, about the budget. It's about the people, the ones he had hired, the ones has got promoted, the ones who were just sitting two floors down doing work that was about to change. I gave her the honest answer, which is not immediately, but only the organization starts designing for it now. Because what I see over and over again is a gap. The technology conversation and the operating model conversation are happening in completely separate rooms. IT is piloting, operations is waiting, HR has no idea what's coming, finance is watching the cost line, and nobody is asking the questions that really matter. Which workflows change entirely? Not which tasks, which workflows. Welcome to episode 39 of the Value Creation Playbook. I'm Raja Mukherjee, and today we are going to answer that question properly. The way I see this, Agentic AI is not a tech project. It is your next operating model. And during the course of today's session, I'm going to show you exactly what that means in practice. The three technologies that you need to understand, the five functions that change first, and the three decisions that determine whether you are in the top 20% who gets this right, or the other 80% who spend 2 years catching up. Now, there's a lot of talk happening around the agentic AI, but let me start with something that might be a bit uncomfortable. Most mid market firms are running three AI programs simultaneously without knowing it. There's the RPA program, usually buried in the finance or operations team, probably running since 2021, delivering somewhere between 30 to 50% of what was promised. Then there's a Gen AI program, usually in IT or communications or both, people using Copilot, people using ChatGPT, individual productivity going up, not sure what the aggregate impact is. And there's something now being called the AI project, the agentic AI pilot that the CTO has just presented to the board. New budget, new excitement, new timeline. Three different technologies, ladies and gentlemen, three different governance models, three different sets of implication for your people, your processes, and your organization structure. Unfortunately, all being treated as one conversation. And the confusion is just not semantic. Is the costing firm real money and real time? I've seen companies deploy agentic AI into processes that were never documented because they assumed that technology would figure it out. It doesn't. I've seen companies buy RPA to solve problems that needed Gen AI and Gen AI to solve problems that needed agentic AI. And then wonder why the savings weren't materializing. I have seen a chief operating officer reject an AI program because she confused it with the RPA that broke 18 months earlier. Understandable, but completely avoidable. The starting point before budget, before vendor selection, before even a single pilot is understanding what you are actually working with. RPA, generative AI, agentic AI. I use a simple frame: automation 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Not because the numbers mean anything technically, but because they signal a genuine generational shift in what the technology can do. Let's go through each one of them. Key point: each one has different cost, governance, and operating model implications. RPA automates rule based repetitive tasks. It follows a fixed script with absolute precision. It does exactly what you tell it to do in exactly the order you specify every single time. That is its strength, and that is its limitation. Because the moment someone changes the screen layout or updates the underlying system or introduces an exception that wasn't in the script, the bot breaks. It doesn't adopt, it stops. The best use cases for RPA are high volume, rule based, stable processes where the definition of correct is completely unambiguous. For example, invoice data entry, payment processing, report generation from fixed templates. Things where there is one right answer and a human being currently has to manually produce it in 100 times a day. RPA is very fast, very literal rule forward, follower, brilliant at repetition, but zero capacity for ambiguity. And this is where the honest reality about RPA, which most vendor presentation won't tell you. The average RPA program delivers somewhere between 30 and 40% of the savings that were in the business case. Not because the technology doesn't work, because the business case was built on optimistic assumptions about how rule based the processes actually were. Most processes that look rule based have far more exceptions than anyone estimated. And each exception either requires human intervention, which eats the productivity gain, or causes the bot to fail, which requires human intervention anyway. The fix is simple but slow. Before you automate anything with RPA, document the process completely. Every step, every decision point, every exception path. If a human says it depends at any point in that documentation, you have found an exception that will eventually break your bot. Generative AI generates things: text, code, analysis, summaries, images. It does this by drawing on a vast model trained on enormous amount of data and producing output that is contextually appropriate to the prompt it receives. And it does it so brilliantly. The quality of the first draft generation from a well prompted GenAI model is genuinely impressive. It has made individual knowledge workers significantly more productive across a wide range of tasks. But this is a critical, but Gen AI is reactive. It responds to prompts. It does not initiate. It does not act. Each conversation is independent. You ask it something, it answers. You ask again, it answers again. But it does not do anything until asked. Think of Gen AI as a brilliant assistant who is sitting at their desk, available, capable of producing excellent work, but waiting for you to ask. The moment you stop asking, they stop producing. Here's what this means at an operating model level. And this is the thing most GenAI adoption programs miss. The productivity gains from GenAI are real. Ask anybody using Copilot or Claude regularly, and they'll tell you that drafting is faster, the research is faster, their fast passes on analysis are better. But the operating model has not changed. The workflow has not changed. The sequence of work, who initiates, who reviews, who approves, who communicates is exactly what it is. People are just doing one step faster. Now, don't get me wrong, making people faster is valuable, but it is not transformation. Transformation is when workflow itself is redesigned, and that requires something more than GenAI. That's where agentic AI comes in. Automation 3.0. Agentic AI takes multiple steps, actions autonomously, without waiting for a prompt, without stopping after one answer. It is connected to your system, your CRM, your ERP, your email, your calendar, your workflow tools. It makes decisions without defined guardrails. If a customer query matches a pattern it has been trained to resolve, it resolves it end to end without a human touching it. If it needs information it doesn't have, it goes and gets it. This is categorically different from both RPA and GenAI. RPA follows a script, GenAI answered a question, Agentic AI manages a workflow. Let me make the distinctions concrete. RPA replaces a task. A human used to enter data from an invoice into a system. RPA now does the task. GenAI assists a person. A human used to draft a supplier email from scratch. GenAI now produces a first draft that the human can review and send. Agentic AI replaces a workflow. A supplier invoice arrives, the agent validates it against the cost PO, cross references with the delivery note, flags any discrepancies above threshold for human review, approves and schedules payment from everything within the threshold, send confirmation to the supplier, updates the ERP, files the document, all without the human touching it. This is not a task. This is a workflow that previously needed a finance coordinator to manage. And that is why agentic AI is an operating model decision. Because when workflows don't need people to coordinate them, the people do need something else. And designing what that something else is, that is a leadership decision, ladies and gentlemen, not a technology decision. Before I get into which functions change first, I want to give you a practical test for whether a function is ready for agentic AI. Ask yourself, is the function primarily about coordinating a sequence of rule-based activities between systems and people? Or is it primarily about judgment, relationship, and context? The first category is where agentic AI deploys first. The second category is where human remain essential. Five functions are transforming first in most mid-market firms, not because they are targeted strategically, but because they meet the criteria I just described. Finance operations, second is customer operations, third is HR operations, followed by procurement, IT, and tech support. All five are high volume, all five are process driven, all five currently depend on human coordination to move work from one stage to the next. Finance operation is usually the first to move, and for good reasons. Invoice processes, payment run, reconciliations, exception flagging, standard reporting. As agentic AI systems deployed on AP and AR can handle a full cycle for standard transaction, receipt to payment without human intervention. Realistic timeline for development is a mid-market firm 6 to 12 months, but only if process documentation is completed before the deployment begins. If you start deploying before documenting, double that timeline and expect a painful middle period. Decision 1, document every process before you touch the technology. Decision 2, design the governance model, who owns what the agent does. Decision 3, sequence narrow, prove it works, then scale. I've said this once and I'll say it again because it is the most common failure mode I see. You cannot automate a process you haven't documented. Not with RPA, not with agentic AI. The technology requires precision. Your process documentation must match that precision. Every step, every decision point, every exception path, every it depends moment converted into an explicit rule. The practical test, can you write the process documentation clearly enough that someone who has never done it can do it again? And this is not a IT governance question. This is the management governance questions. Four things, or rather three things that you need to define before any agentic system goes live. First, confidence thresholds. At what level of confidence does the systems act autonomously? At what level does it escalate for human review? Second, escalation mapping. Every possible escalation path documented in advance. Not the system will escalate when needed. Exactly what conditions trigger escalation and to what exactly which human. Third, the feedback loop. How does the system learn from the corrections human made during the escalation process? This is how accuracy improves over time. And don't think I'm telling you this to you because you lack the processes. Uh, the temptation is to run all of them simultaneously. Three functions, five workflows, two vendors all at once. Don't. Because you won't learn anything that transfers across pilots. It's all running at the same time. The learning that comes from one successful deployment is what makes the second deployment faster and better. Run them sequentially. Let me close this with three lines. Write these down if you are in a position to do so. One, agentic AI changes workflows, not just tasks. Design your operating model for that reality, not your technology roadmap. Two, document before you deploy. Every process, no exceptions. The technology will not figure out the ambiguity for you. Three, the firms 18 months ahead are the ones with the most AI tools. They are the ones who asked the operating model question first and kept asking it. The CEO that asked me whether he should be worried about the team, I went back to him 2 weeks after the session and I told him something that I should have said in the room. The organization that handles this transition well, the ones that document properly, govern carefully, and sequence intelligently, those are the organizations where the best people stay. Because the best people want to do judgment work, they want to manage complexity, they want to make decisions that matter. Agentic AI, done properly, gives them more of that, not less. And that is what this is all about. This is how good looks like. If this was useful, subscribe. Every week, one framework grounded in real experience. Next week, your discount policy is a margin leak, and I'll show you exactly how to fix it. The links to connect with me via the website, YouTube channel, or LinkedIn are all there. Until next time, take care, stay safe. Goodbye for now. I'll see you next week.